Okay, welcome back. All right, so you heard about the back office, how important that is, right? Well, that back office didn't happen, and now you understand the importance of the back office and the work that they've done in the last little while. This next panel obviously is going to be discussing the data, the research that we need to go on, and most important, the impact of that data that it's having on all of us. And more importantly, the as you saw when Sherwood Neiss presented the information earlier, I don't know about you, but I know I was lit up. Um, this is the very first time you're seeing that it's working. This is it. This is the proof is data. Data is the key. Data and research is the key ingredients to bring in awareness, to enlighten everyone, and more importantly, to bring confidence to a market. So I'm really excited. I have another colleague of mine, Scott Pantel, who's going to join us here. I know Sherwood is making his way in, but until he does, Scott Pantel is you're there, Scott. I just want to make sure that you're all set up properly.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'll make sure that they put us side by side here so I can see you. Right now you look in that tiny little screen. So I'll make sure that Carolina fixes that immediately. All right. So but in the meantime, Scott, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself, please?
That's great. And Oscar, thank you for letting me be a part of this event. It's been a terrific session. I've learned a lot, and I'm really happy to be a part of the ecosystem. There's obviously some really exciting things that have happened, and the future is very bright. And I'm thrilled to play my role in the ecosystem. For a quick background, I'm CEO of LSI. We're a med tech, healthcare focused market research and advisory firm. So we work with venture funded startups all the way up to the biggest healthcare companies in the world that acquire companies, invest in companies. And so you may be asking yourself, what are you doing here? And the reason I'm here is because, over the last 20 years, I've watched some really terrific companies get funded. So I've watched early stage companies that are developing medical technologies get access to capital, bring their technology to the market, and help patients and change the world. And that's why we're all here in my industry anyway. But what I've also observed is and watched, unfortunately, a lot of really impactful companies never get to market simply because they could not get access to the capital that they needed. Maybe their deal was too small for a venture capital private equity play. Maybe they just had have the doors opening for them that others were having open up for them. And so, 9 months, 12 months ago, I'll be honest, I was a big skeptic of this whole market. And I've educated myself thanks to you and a lot of the events you put together. And I am a believer now. And I'm watching medical device companies, med tech companies use Regulation A plus and these other vehicles to get the capital they need so they can get to market. I'm really excited because I get to help with some of those companies. I have a partner. He and I, Stephen Brock, are focused on healthcare, and we're working with companies and helping them raise capital. So we're just happy to be a part of it. My role here is to provide research and data to support those companies and then to walk them through the program and the ecosystem that all the folks here today are a part of. It's really exciting. So thank you.
Wow. No, I think you nailed it. I mean, the reason why we're having this, and Sherwood just sent a message to everyone. He sincerely apologizes that he's just not, he got double booked because we're running late. So I do apologize. But his presentation will be available to everyone. He's given me some key points to make sure that I address in here. And it's great that I get to have a conversation with Scott as well. It would have been great with Sherwood as well. But Scott, you nailed it. Almost a year ago, you were a non-believer, and I think this is really important for everyone to understand. You come from a research firm. You've done the research. Just curious, from the research, was this in your? Did it ever show up on your radar? Did the Jobs Act or these regulations ever come up, or was it just kind of, hey, it's crowdfunding, it'll never work for us? Just curious from that perspective.
So the answer is it was on our radar. We were aware of the vehicles, but there's this perception, I think, across the board, and especially in our industry, that And that's an option, that's an alternative, and that's really, really changing. And so, I mean, to answer your question directly, we knew a little bit about it. We didn't take it very seriously. There were some leadership, some visionaries out there that have been talking about it, and we just started paying attention 9 months ago and educating ourselves and observing what was going on. And I'll tell you that today there are companies that are out there making it happen right now. We hold an event. My company hosts a big event once a year on the West Coast where we bring together venture capital, private equity, the big strategics, the folks that are out doing M&A. We vet 100 to 150 companies that are developing innovations. We talk about the industry and we try and do deals. And it's always the traditional venture capital, private equity, maybe some family office, angel investing money in there. And I've watched over the years these companies lose a ton of equity and raise really small amounts of capital along the way. And I've watched many not raise capital at all, as I mentioned earlier. So we're seeing it happen. It's not just words anymore. We literally have companies that are going through the program. They're having success. And I think that this is really, we like to say it's a moment in time. And you've probably been saying that for a while, Oscar. But in our view, in healthcare, in medtech specifically, people are really embracing that it's a moment in time. And I will also point out that, those traditional, the venture capital firms that they've had it really good for a long time. I think they're also becoming aware that it's a new world, and, there's so many great things that are coming out of this. And I saw some stats that you published just recently about female founders of color they have a better shot at getting access to capital. And that's one of the great things that I think also comes out of this movement that we have here.
Well, and one of the points that Sherwood told me to tell everyone, without the data, we wouldn't be able to have this meaningful discussion, meaning that we can now show people, anybody says, oh, that's great, but we can show you the information, and it's just getting started, right? And that's, one of his projections is that we're going to do $1 billion in 1 month. I mean, in 1 year. We did $1 billion in 5 years. Now look at the short time frame. Why? Because the infrastructure is getting there. But what is really telling you? It's this information. I believe research in this capacity, and obviously you've been doing this for a lot longer, Scott. So I'd be interested to hear your points on research, why it's so important for an emerging market. I see it as a validator that it's indicating that this is in a northward trajectory. That's because when we started this 12 years ago, we had nothing. I'll never forget this. I mean, I know Sherwood, Sarah, David, we all remember these days where people say, oh, no, it's never going to work. It's going to be full of, and it's going to change. We thought it was going to, we could show them all the graphs and charts, but it didn't matter. They were projections. They were based on what may happen or so on. But then this came out. So how important is research in what you're doing? And now you're going to adapt it to the Jobs Act. How important is that to get awareness from the companies and then, of course, the investors are at large?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so the short answer is it's really important. No investor is going to invest in a company until they see real data. How big is the market? What's the competition? Is it growing? That sort of thing. And one of the challenges for these small companies is they're out trying to raise capital. The investors are telling them, show us the data to prove that the opportunity is there. But these companies, by definition, they don't have the capital to gather the research and retain the research that's required. So it's sort of the chicken and the egg thing. And so we're seeing that change as well. We looked at 218 deals, Oscar, in the medtech space, in the healthcare space, since 2020, and this is a pretty comprehensive set of deals. And there were some interesting data points that came out of it. And the first one is that the average Series A deal was the companies raised on average 7.3 million. They gave up 31% of their company on average for those deals. The average Series B financing was 16 million, and on average gave up another 23% of their company. And for the companies that made it all the way to a Series C, and hopefully they got close to market or had an exit, they're raising 30 million on average. They're giving up another 25% of the company. So if you do the math, these companies that are going through the traditional route, they're giving up north of 75, nearly 80% of their company along the way. So, they need access to research. They need access to data so they can prove their opportunity is there. And, this is helping them to do that. So, again, it's critical. They've got to have research. We've got to have more data in this ecosystem to support what's happening. I know that Rialto recently published some really interesting data that pointed to, nearly a 90% success rate for companies that were raising 25 million. And the paper's out there. You can Google it and you can find the data. But that's the type of information that we need and the research we need to get everybody to continue rallying behind this movement.
Well, it doesn't just rally I see it as obviously it's encouraging for other companies to say, hey, you know what, this is working. But more importantly, I think it also demonstrates to investors that, wait a minute, I better, not sit here too long. I may miss out on something. And I think you even said it. I firmly believe this is the time when venture capital, private equity is competing with the crowd. David Wheel always told me, 12 years ago, I'll never forget this. It's still ingrained in my brain, which is, as an entrepreneur, I always keep hearing, oh, I'm sorry, there's no more money, Oscar. It's dry out there. That's what we get told as entrepreneurs. And I have no data to say, no, that isn't true. And I'll never forget when I was sharing that story with him, he goes, Oscar, let me put this in perspective. There's $36 trillion sitting in this bucket over here. And I just want you to know it's sitting there and it's liquid. It's there. And then there's the entrepreneurs over here. And then this whole thing in the middle here that you got to navigate through. And there it is. Yes, there are some companies that know how to navigate there quicker with venture capital. And I applaud you. This is not to say venture capital is not good. Obviously, there are different reasons why people would do it, but it doesn't represent all the companies that raise capital. And this is why I think research and data is so important. When you consider that only 0.00055 of companies who raise capital in the United States are actually the ones that we see visibility to. So imagine every single day when you wake up in the morning as an entrepreneur and you go, hey, what are my odds of raising capital today? And you see a PitchBook report in Crunchbase of another person, a company raising venture capital money. Your only guide stick is that. That's it. What this is now showing you, no, that is not the only venue for your opportunity. And you now have choices, and you can navigate them in such a way that you can determine your own path as to how you're going to get there. Venture capital does have a spot in here. They do bring things that other capital doesn't bring, but now you can bring them together if you can find the right mix. But now you got data to validate it. I mean, that's the part that just, for me, I get excited. These are the two areas that I'm excited about with data right now, is that it demonstrated that where the biggest amount of capital that is being injected to by investors are investors that are over 40 years old. So everybody thought, oh, Oscar, it's just the millennials online. No, it's not. It's the 40 to 65. 40 to 65. So those who are looking for, was this the time to become an entrepreneur? Well, this is it. That's number one. And you touched on it, minorities, right? I'm Hispanic. So being a minority, unless you're one, you never really understand it. But when you're raising capital, you certainly feel it. So right. This is an equalizer.
It really is. It really is, Oscar. And you're just making me think of some other observations that I've made over the years. And that is that, at this event that we hold, and we're bringing together, accredited investors and big funds and institutional money. And, we will, after every event, I'll have somebody, whether it's somebody from my staff, my family, from the hotel staff, say to me something like, gosh, I saw that presentation on that company that's curing cancer, fixing an orthopedic issue, fill in the blank, whatever it is, doing something really special. I sure would love, I would love to invest in that company. How can I do that? And up until now, there's, the options are limited. And what this does is it allows everybody to get in on the action, everybody to get involved in a company or an opportunity that they believe in. And it levels the playing field, like you said. I've heard many times over the years as well, there's not a lot of money out there. It's never going to happen for you. Well, this completely levels the field, and it puts the companies in control. It puts the founders in a stronger position. And, I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. It's not easy starting these ventures. And, it's the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into building these ventures. And so I'm a big fan of giving the founder, giving the CEO more control, letting them run with their venture longer throughout the life cycle. We see some CEOs that are founders that they drop off at a certain point for various reasons. But these are the ones with the vision and the dream that really can take this all the way if they have the resources to do so. But I wanted to point out that, and the other comment is that we've also seen a lot of venture capital funds look at opportunities, and the fund will say, that's not the technology area that we're interested in, but there may be somebody at the fund that wants to invest in that deal. So they can now invest outside of their fund into deals through platforms like this. So it's exciting across the board. It really is.
No, I agree. And obviously we're staying in touch with the subject data and research. Why we're excited, because that data is there. And look at today, that report and of course what you're doing. And I since the day I met you and Stephen Brock, it's an eye opener for me as well. And I think there is so many other channels similar to this that are doing. We need to enlighten them to see the opportunity of these regulations and the impact it can have on companies and everyone at large. And you notice in one of the closing points that I'll make here that Sherwood said, which really caught my attention afterwards, which is he didn't go to Capitol Hill saying, let's give them access to capital. Is to create jobs. And I mean, think about that very statement right there. I mean, he showed us that 250,000 jobs contributed to the U.S. economy and taxes. I mean, it's not just the capital that allows the dream, it employed people as well.
Absolutely.
It's a very impactful element. So for everyone else, obviously, look, we wanted to recap the data side, the importance of it. Now it's going to be available. There is going to be some tricking components to it. There is some companies that are doing analysis on this sector, like Sherwood Neiss, who is bringing out reports as a whole. There are companies who are doing research on individual companies. That's for the investor base. That's not for the companies themselves. Please seek legal counsel before you speak to anyone. It's always good to get that legal advice before you move on. So, Scott, as always, thank you. And, I haven't stopped jumping up and down since I hadn't seen that report from Sherwood. So you can imagine I've been getting messages all afternoon when you can get that report. But you can imagine how excited the people that we're talking to in MedTech with you and Stephen, how excited you're going to be about that information, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, Oscar, and keep doing the great work that you and your team are doing.
Perfect. All right, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.